You're listening to the Breakaway Breakdown, the bi-weekly podcast featuring breakaway roping's top talents from the professional level down to the amateurs, news, and more. We're going to be covering the fastest sport on dirt. I'm your host, Kaitlin Gustave. This episode is brought to you by Equinety. Stay tuned for the commercial break to learn more. Today on this episode of the Breakaway Breakdown podcast, I had the opportunity to call and talk to a fellow California cowgirl by the name of Abigayle Hampton-Williams. Originally from Coalinga, California, now living in Paris, Texas with her husband and expecting a little baby boy, Abigayle continues to follow her dreams of training rope horses. As people might know, her great horse Snooky, who she finished in the breakaway roping. Abigayle was qualified for the first ever RFD TV's The American, won the first ever Rope Like a Girl breakaway roping at the Wildfire in 2019, and has more titles and credentials than I can say right now. She does a lot of horse training, which keeps her very busy with her husband, and she tells us all about how she got into the horse training and how great of a blessing that's been for her life. She also talks about the importance of having a mental game coach, because that is something that I'm sure everyone battles with, is their mental game. So go ahead, enjoy this episode, and don't forget, let us know what you get out of this episode. Leave us a rating and review, and go ahead and on any of our social pages, let us know what your favorite part of this episode was. I hope you guys enjoy. So, Abby, a lot has, kind of changed. You have a new last name. I guess it's not new. You've been married for, a year now?
Yes. Yep. It has been since January 2021, so a little over a year.
Nice. And you are expecting? Am I right?
I am having a baby.
A baby. Do we know, boy or girl?
It is a boy.
It's a boy. So we're not going to be full on carrying on the breakaway roping tradition.
No, for a little bit though, but maybe baby number 2 one day.
Oh man, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how I know you're still roping, and recently you won the 3D at the Roping Futurities of America and in the open breakaway, and you were the second round winner on 2 different horses. It doesn't seem like being pregnant is slowing you down any. How's the transition from, I feel like it's a different ball game when you're pregnant roping versus when you're not pregnant roping. I don't really know.
Yeah, no, it's different for sure. I have to be more careful.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I can't just, get on any type of horse. I got to be very comfortable in the horse that I'm riding.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one thing I think I've struggled with, the last few months, is my balance.
Mm-hmm.
So crazy how your equilibrium is so off, when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've really had to, kind of compensate for as far as that goes. When I first got pregnant, I actually, I had gotten in a wreck. I had gotten kicked.
Oh.
And so I broke my ribs and I lacerated my liver. And so I thought for sure that's why my balance was off. When I came back 3 weeks later, I thought, okay, that's why my balance is off, because I got kicked. I've been in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I found out I was, pregnant during that time. And I was like, oh, crap, this is why my equilibrium is off, because I'm pregnant. And it's crazy how just a little seed at the time mess up, your whole balance. So I guess just really making sure that I'm riding horses every day that I can to keep that balance, and that's been most important. But the horses that I rode at the futurity, they're so honest and so good, and one of them was my good mare, and then the other one is a stud that we've trained forever, and then the other one was my husband's heel horse, and that we've also trained, but they just all really take care of me. And so, I think that's the most important thing, is just being on something that you're comfortable on and you feel safe on, and, making sure that you can keep your balance on those, because the colts are hard to keep your balance on. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. Man, that's interesting. It is so interesting. You're growing a human inside you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy for sure. I've lost weight, which is crazy, while I've been pregnant. So I thought, oh, for sure, that'll help my roping.
Yeah.
But your balance is still off.
Oh no. Well, and I'm glad you brought up, training horses. I know you do a lot of training. So I kind of, I want to talk about that. Like, what got you into training? What makes you want to train young horses?
Yeah, so I've been training horses since I was young. The first horse I ever trained was my good mare Snooky that I rode years, that I actually sold last year. And she was the first one I ever trained. And once I trained her, I kind of got to liking it. And it wasn't a thing where I wanted to do it. I didn't think, oh, well, I'm going to start training horses. No, my dad kind of just pushed it on me and was like, we don't have the money to go buy, a finished horse. So you got to make it. And so I had to make my horses, and I had to make my practice horse, and I had to rope on what I had, and thankfully my dad has a good eye for him, because I never thought he was going to be a very good horse. But, she got us into it. And then in California, I trained a few horses here and there, but I moved back here, and I met Eric, and he trains horses. He trains team roping horses, and he helps me with my breakaway horses and rides colts and all that stuff. So he actually is the one that, kind of helped me continue that. I had some horses that I already had trained that were ready to sell, and so I sold them and put that money back into another investment, bought another horse, and we just kind of grew from there. And now I think we have like 30 horses between our own and training horses and sale horses. We're super blessed to be able to do it. So we do it every day. And at first, it was kind of whatever horses you can take in at the time, whoever wants to send you a horse. And now we've gotten big enough to where we can kind of pick and choose what we want to take. And especially with me now, having a baby, and after I have him, I'm going to have to really watch what I get on. And so it's really nice that we've gotten big enough to where we can kind of pick and choose which ones we want to ride and which ones we don't. And we've gotten big enough to where now we have a bunch of our own horses, and it's just really, really exciting. So it's definitely something we love.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is one thing, like when something you love just turns into a career. I love hearing those stories, because, that's really big. You got to be doing something you love.
For sure.
That's awesome. Well, I want to jump back into that, but I want to, you brought up your dad, you brought up your husband, you brought up here, which I know where here is, but, our listeners might not. I want to go back to the beginning, growing up. Tell me about your family, when you kind of got into breakaway roping. I know you're from Coalinga, California, correct?
Yes. Yep. That's where I grew up. My dad was a PRCA team roper. My uncle, Todd Hampton, also a PRCA team roper. I grew up in a roping family, for sure. My Aunt Stacy runs barrels, so that's kind of what I got into first, was the running barrels aspect of it. I think that's where I got a lot of my horsemanship from. I was put around a lot of good horsemen. There's a lot of great ones out in California, and so I was blessed to be put with the best, and learned how to ride very early in life. I was on a horse since I was a baby. And then I didn't actually start roping until I was 11, I think. I was kind of late to the roping. Looking at today's generation, I was late. Everyone ropes now at 5 years old, 6 years old. I couldn't even swing a rope. So, I started roping at 11. Didn't really love it. I was actually still barrel racing pretty hard, and I loved barrel racing. I had a really nice barrel horse, and my barrel horse was also crippled, so I kind of had to figure out if I was going to continue that or if I wanted to continue roping. And the very first horse I actually had in the breakaway, she was my pole horse. I won the state finals on her in the poles, and she bucked me off almost every practice. Like, she was awful. But it taught me a lot. Again, like a lot of horsemanship. So that's pretty cool. But, just kind of grew from there. And it wasn't until I was about 14 years old, where everything really started to click. I got a different horse. My good horse became my practice horse, and we got something else, and then it just grew. And then, the basics started becoming basics, and now we had to get into the hardcore stuff. Okay, now we got to learn to score, and now where's my rope landing, and why is this happening? And so, I wasn't the best through high school. I didn't ever make the national finals. The first national finals I ever made was in 2018, and it was the college finals.
Oh, wow.
I didn't ever make a national finals, which was so depressing to me because I roped so good at that age, but it was all mental. All of it was mental. And so that's really what stopped me at that age. And I look back and, I thought, high school nationals is everything. Like, I have to make high school nationals. And I never did, and I survived. So, but I always tell all of the students that come through and get lessons, I was like, I never made high school nationals. So, I mean, you don't suck. Trust me. Like, if you don't make state, it's okay. Things happen, And so anyways, my dad got the rodeo coach position at West Hills College in Coalinga in 2014. I decided I was going to go there. I wanted to go to Cal Poly forever, but it's just too good to be true.
I feel like you and me both, sister. You and me both.
Yeah, you understand. You were a California girl. And so I decided that, I was just going to go to West Hills, and college was going to be free, and that was okay. And I rodeoed for my dad for 2 years, and then I thought, okay, now I can go to Cal Poly. Well, plans changed, and I visited Texas every year at the same time, and I fell more in love with Texas every year at the same time. And I told my parents, I said, well, I kind of want to move back to Texas, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, that might not work, out of the blue one day, it was actually after I had already graduated West Hills, hadn't decided where I was going to go. I think I was going to actually rodeo for my dad one more year and just take a different course. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send my rodeo video, my best runs, out to a couple of coaches. I'm not going to tell anyone. Like, I'm just going to do it. And so I sent it off to 5 different schools. And the first one I heard back from was Texas A&M Commerce. And I was like, oh, man, he wants to meet me. This is the same year I made the college finals. And so he was like, yeah, we'd love to have you, And I had discussed it a little bit with my parents, but they pretty much told me, if you're not going to be able to get your school paid for, don't even think about it, because we can't afford it. You can't afford it. It's just, it's not going to be feasible. And I was like, well, okay, that probably won't happen. I don't rope good like everyone back there. I'm not going to be able to do that. We'll see. And I heard back from all the coaches that I talked to, but Texas A&M Commerce just sounded good. I had been in that area before. I liked it, and he offered me a full ride.
That's sweet.
Crap. I was like, this is what I wanted. This can't be happening. No way this is happening. And I went to the college finals. I discussed it with my parents. We still had no idea how we were going to do it because we only had one truck and one trailer. But they made it work for me, and that we couldn't pass it up because, in California, you're not going to get your school paid for a rodeo scholarship. And so I signed at the college finals, and I moved to Texas, and like I said, I didn't start training horses immediately, but I had some that I had already trained of my own that I would sell. And I came back here. I got hooked up with the right people and met Eric very early on into living in Texas. And he actually rodeoed for Commerce, too. That's kind of how I met him.
Okay.
And then the rest is history. I've been here for almost 4 years. Got married in January of 2021. We have our own place here in Paris, Texas, and we get to do what we love every day. So it's pretty cool.
That's a blessing. That is a huge blessing.
Yes, it is that.
I love that. Oh, man. And, you talked about, too, like, way back when you figured out that it was, breakaway roping. We're going back to breakaway roping, that your mental game was what was setting you apart from not excelling. What did you do to get past that, and when did you kind of see that pivotal moment in your breakaway roping career where you started coming out on top?
I did not think I had a mental issue until I was 20 years old, which is crazy. That's like, you went through your whole high school career and you didn't know that you needed a mental coach. No, I had no idea. My dad was always just very hard on me. Like, you can figure it out. Like, this is all basic. Like, it's all in your head. You just need to do it this way. Well, I just think it's easier for a man sometimes than a girl,
We get in our heads a little bit.
Yeah. So, I just, at 20 years old, I was in a rut. I had actually just come off a really, really good year. Like I said, I had made the college finals, but I had won the WPRA Rookie of the Year that fall. Made the American. Well, actually, that was the year after. That was after my mental breakthrough. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I just had a really good year, and I was really thriving. I won the region in California, and I had won reserve all around. I got to go in the goat tying to the college finals. I just had a really great year. I'd come back to Texas and won, and it was just really, really good. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can keep up with everyone in Texas. I know I can do it. Like, no problem. Yeah. There's just a lot more roping that goes on back here in Texas than there was in California. And, I was going to these ropings in California, every 2 weeks or once every month, and I do good. Well, then when you get back here to Texas and you're going every weekend, I didn't understand that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not win all the time. It's okay to lose. But you got to learn from it. I got in a rut fast back here. I went through a bunch of money very quickly. I was entering every weekend. I just was like going stir crazy because I was so excited to be back here. And I had so many mental breakdowns that fall of 2018. I was crying it was one thing after another. It wasn't even like something, consistent. It wasn't like I was every weekend. It wasn't like I was missing, or it wasn't like I was top counting. It was like I'd miss here, I'd break a barrier here, I'd get out run here, my horse wouldn't work good. I mean, it just felt like it was something new every single run. And my dad was like, it's probably time that you probably get a mental coach. And I was like, oh, you're going to tell me this now? After I've gone 4 years in high school and was like so depressed that I didn't make the national finals. I what do you mean now? What's a mental coach? I don't even know what that is. And he was like, you need to get hooked up with Nora Huntley. Nora was my goat tying coach way back when she was still going to college and at West Hills. And so I was like, okay, I'm super uncomfortable with it. I was like, I'm going to have to talk about my feelings with people, And Nora actually was a huge breakthrough for me, like huge. It wasn't until I went to the very first WCRA finals. I had made it through every single round. I had $50 to my name, and I had wrote a $70 check to the WCRA for like stalls or something. Like, I didn't even have enough money in my bank account to to pay for the stalls. But I had that check written because I just knew I was going to win something. And, I got to the last round. I had gotten through the whole finals with wild cards or something. I don't know. I had not won a fee yet, but I made it to the final round, and that's where the big money was. And I top knotted my final round cap, and I was like, I'm fixing to quit. I was to the breaking point. So finally I was like, all right, I'll call Nora. I'm at wit's end. I've got to do something. And this was the first year they had the rope for the crown and stuff. And I was so bummed because I wanted to go so bad. I was going to be in Vegas anyways.
Yeah.
And be able to go. And so I called Nora. I think I called her 2 or 3 times that week. And she was like, maybe it's time to just step back a little bit and just look at things, bigger picture. And she was like, there's just a lot that she said that made sense to me. Nora and I have a lot in common because we had really hard dads, are really hard on us. And so she understands me more than probably anyone, just because she understands, and she's been at the level that I've been at too. And so we really had a heart to heart. And I was like, well, Nora, I just don't know if I need to enter. I don't have any money. Well, that weekend I had actually sold my very first big money horse. It was the first horse that I made that sold for a bunch of money, and I was super stoked. And the people had came out from North Carolina to try this horse, and he sold, and they were like, well, we want to kind of take him to Northside. And I was like, okay, I guess we'll go. I'll come up there, I'll go rope, and the Phil Pfeiffer Memorial was that weekend too. And I was like, well, do you want to go to Northside, or do you want to go to this jackpot? More runs or just one run?
Yeah.
And they're like, let's go to the jackpot. It's all right, well, I have money, I'll enter on that money. And it was the last rope for the crown qualifier too. And I ended up winning it, and I was like, awesome. No way. And it was just that weekend I forgot about the hard parts that I had been through. I had forgot about missing. I had forgot about broken barriers. I went and just roped for me, roped I was in the practice pen. I had been doing it every day, which I have, but some days it feels like you don't even know how to swing a rope. Yeah. So this weekend though, it ended up clicking, and I think that was the pivotal moment in my mental state. Because I realized okay, this isn't that hard. Yeah. This isn't really the end of the world. There's so much more to life than winning, and I always thought that, if I don't win, there's nothing in my life worth it, know? And Nora kind of opened everything up for me, and she was like, you got to look at the positives. Yeah, okay, I didn't win, but what was positive about this run? Reflect, but move on. Yeah. And that was kind of the pivotal moment that weekend. And I ended up having a great year. And since then, I don't consider myself ever being in a rut. But before that, I just remember that fall 2018 was awful. Yeah. And that was the most pivotal moment in my roping career.
That is so cool. That gives me body chills.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool story.
Equinety Horse XL and Equinety Ultimate OEC helps keep horses' bodies in the best shape possible when competing and going down the road. The amino acids in Equinety products help horses both at home and on the road. Horses recover faster and overall have healthier coat and hoof quality. Equinety products are a go-to for a solid supplement foundation for all horses at any stage of life, no matter what their job is. Equinety Horse XL is made up of 100% pure amino acids specifically formulated to give the body what it needs in order to promote repair at the cellular level. The Equinety Ultimate OEC is a flaxseed-based omega-3 with natural vitamin E and colloidal silver all in one, which makes for a very powerful antioxidant, helps neutralize free radicals, and helps to reduce inflammation. For more information, please visit www.teamequinety.com. That is www.teamequinety.com. That's cool. Well, and I know, so you qualified for the first ever American, correct?
I did, yeah. Super awesome year.
Man, you, that completely changed. And you won the first ever Rope Like a Girl breakaway roping at the Wildfire. You did, that next year was great.
Yeah, no, that was kind of all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that was 2018 that I had that really tough time. And after that Phil Pfeiffer, I just really, everything kind of came together. I went to the Rope for the Crown. I placed pretty good there. I went to the Wildfire
mm-hmm.
And won that roping. And, went to the American. And during that time, though, I was roping to rope.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't roping to win. I was roping to go have fun, and I think that's, to this day, is why I did so good during that time, was because I was roping to just have fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't roping with a bunch of stress on my shoulders. I was having a blast,
That's cool. Yeah, that's definitely, I think sometimes people get, put so much pressure on themselves that it, sometimes it works out for people where it will go good, but sometimes if you put too much pressure on yourself, it can go way south, way fast.
Oh, for sure. I know that, personally, if I put too much pressure on myself, I falter at
mm-hmm.
pressure. There's times where you gotta live with it. There's going to be times where you have to, buck up and take that pressure. But I know that if I put more pressure on myself than there already is, I'm going to falter for sure, And so I try to not put so much pressure on myself. I try to just let it be fun. I try and really, I try to compare everything to how I feel when I'm riding these colts. Blast when I ride colts. I love training colts, and so when I get to just come out and have fun and go rope, that's when I rope my best. So that's what I need to do on my horses.
Mm-hmm.
I've trained these horses, I just need to go have fun. I need to do it like I do it in the practice pen, which, it's a lot harder. It's a lot easier said than done, but you can drive your hardest.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of training colts, I want to talk about Snooki. I know in a previous interview, when you won the Wildfire, you had mentioned that you had the opportunity to sell Snooki a few times and didn't, and then, now you have. How rock solid was that horse? How was the training process? And was it, how was it finally saying, okay, I'm selling you? I feel like you guys were partners for so long.
That sounds so hardcore, okay, you're done, bye. But she really is the reason why I am the way I am, who
mm-hmm.
I am, what I have. I mean, this place that we own here, she really is the reason for
mm-hmm.
that. I couldn't have done any of this without her. She is the first horse I ever trained.
Mm-hmm.
Process wasn't easy, but it always seemed like we always were going uphill.
Mm-hmm.
She was trained, and we didn't know how she was going to be. We bought her for $2,000. She's grade. We knew her dad was some sort of dash for cash, but we just didn't know, and we kind of took a chance on her.
Mm-hmm.
She was a horse before we bought her, and I had almost sold her a couple of different times,
mm-hmm.
and then I decided, I think we're growing apart. There was just a little part of me that I knew I'd always be able to win on that mare
mm-hmm.
for sure. But like I said, before, I don't have all the money in the world. If I could have kept her and bought something else, I for sure would have.
Yeah.
But just couldn't. If I wanted something else, I had to sell her. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because that was that was my child, and she was a super, super easy horse to train. She actually, and we went through some hard times, but she was just so willing. She had a sarcoid on the side of her face, so we were in a hackamore for like the first 6 to 8 months of training her. So I had to train her in a hackamore, which is like super hard when the horse is not very broke. She was never broke that great. So, I trained her in a hackamore, and then when we finally put a bit in her mouth, I think she had a bit in her mouth for like 3 months, and we were healing on her one day, and she tripped over the steer and nearly cut her tongue off. And so we had to take her back out of the bit and put her back in the hackamore. And she just, poor girl, went through hell and back. And then we finally figured out like what was going to work. We had found a bit that was going to keep above her tongue and not mess with her sarcoids. And so, that was, I think, 2 years before I moved to Texas. Yeah, that was my freshman year of college when that happened. And I can't even tell you how much money I won. I wish I would have kept track of our stats, because I bet you it was close to, I don't even know. I can't even tell you. That's how she's just won so much. And she was the type of horse that anyone could jump on, and anyone could go in on her, and that's why everyone loved her. She was the worst mare to be around. She was like the absolute worst horse, and she was terrible to take care of. And she was so high maintenance, and you couldn't love on her. Like, she was not an in-your-pocket type horse. She wanted nothing to do with you. She just wanted to be an athlete, and that was her. And you kind of had to just accept her for what she was. But she was awesome. And last year we were just kind of going back and forth, and I felt like I just needed a little something more. And so with kind of talking to my dad, I was like, yeah, well, I'll just kind of post her and see what happens. And the first person that came and tried her bought her that day.
Oh my gosh.
I never cried so much in my life. I think I cried for a week straight in my barn, like just sitting there. Her stall was empty, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and couldn't believe I sold her. And, I was like, I'm never going to find anything else. And I don't know what I'm going to do. What have I done? Like, I got to get her back. And I didn't get her back. Still, to this day, would still had her. But she ended up going off to a gal in Louisiana, and a path took her differently. She's going to chiropractic school, and so she ended up selling Kentucky. And now a little girl, I think she's 11 or 12, little girl has her in Louisiana. Josie Connor's dad actually was friends with the gal that bought the mare from me, and they got the new pair hooked up, and they're living in Louisiana, and she's doing super good, and they are thriving and winning a bunch. I actually just got a text from her today. They want to come see me. I'm like, please come see me. I need to see my horse.
Yeah. You're like that. I mean, she might be your horse now, but she's forever my horse.
She's always going to be mine. She's always going to be my Snooki, So, but she's doing super good, and that was kind of what I wanted her to do. I wanted her to go off and be a horse that someone could grow with, because, if I was going to sell her at all, now was the time.
Yeah.
Or a year ago was the time, because she was 12 years old. It was, she go off and make someone else happy, and I had to get something else. And the horse I have now is awesome, and I'm still trying to get with her because I didn't train her. I bought her finished, and so it's, that's kind of hard when you train all your own and then have to get on something else. But she really resembles Snooki, and so that's kind of why I bought her. But I so wish I could have had both of them, because I keep telling my husband, I'm like, I could have maybe really tried to go to the national finals if I would have had both of them. He's like, oh, stop. You didn't even rodeo. I was like, yeah, but I like to wish. I like to think I would have.
Right? Oh, man. Man, that is so cool. I'm really glad that you can still be in contact with, even though it's like past 2 owners now, like you can still be in contact, still see how Snooki's doing. That's really cool.
For sure. Yeah, they're super good people. They are always contacting me, always asking for points and what they can do to make her better. And, you know, I know that mare like the back of my hand. I rode her for 7 years, and love that they can come to me and ask me, and they really like, you know, the feedback I give them. And, you know, she says, oh, well, I know we didn't buy her from you, but you know her. And I was like, I'd rather come to me. I want to help you make her the best she is. Yeah. You know, she still has a ton of life left in her. And she's going to take that little girl so far.
That's cool. It. That is so cool. Oh, man. Well, and, you know, speaking of helping people and training people, I want, you know, this podcast is called the Breakaway Breakdown podcast. And I ask all my guests, you know, what is something that you're breaking down within your roping? You know, is it with your mental game, your swing, your scoring? You know, what is the one thing that you're really focusing on right now?
I'd say the one thing I'm focusing on is my scoring. I've really, this last year, after I sold Snooki was such an easy horse to score. What we really implemented was scoring into her everyday, you know, workout, but which is so important. You know, the score starts your run. And so once I sold her, I got my new mare, Shakira, and Shakira leaves a lot harder than Snooki does. And so I felt like I kept breaking barriers when I first got Shakira, like barriers that I did not need to break. Like, and I bought Shakira because she was so fast and she was so good to score on, and she was just easy. And she resembled Snooki, obviously, but she made things easy in my roping. And so I had rode plenty of horses, you know, in those years that I was riding Snooki, but in a high stress situation, Snooki was the one I got on. And so when I got Shakira, I was taking the same start on Shakira that I would on Snooki. Well, Shakira leads harder than Snooki. And so I couldn't figure out why I kept breaking these barriers. Like, I'm taking the same start that I would have, you know, on Snooki. Why do I keep breaking these barriers on Shakira? And honestly, I can't tell you that it was like, oh, a couple weeks and I figured it out. No, I didn't figure it out until like the end of the summer. And I had had that mare since February. Okay. So it took me a long time. I went all year. I went rodeoing over the 4th of July, and I went to during Cheyenne, and I finally, after Cheyenne, was like, I've got to go home. I've got to go back to the amateur rodeos. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with this, because I either need to figure it out or I need to give her someone that is going to figure out better than me. And so I brought her home, and we started really getting in the practice pen, and I started being very disciplined, and then I got hurt, and I had so many big plans before I got hurt. And since then, I just haven't been able to, you know, go as much as I want to, because, you know, I'm pregnant, but I still am really trying to focus on that start when I do go. And so, and I can't even tell you that, like, I figured it out yet, because I haven't. I went to the roping in Abilene and Open. Yeah, I won the 3D because I broke barriers to get to the short round.
Oh, no.
I'm on all 3 of my horses. And I was like, are you kidding me? But then I came back, and, you know, I really was like, okay, this is what I need to see. Do not move until you see this, you know, and it's a lot easier said than done, but just really focusing on my score and picking my spot where I want to see my calf too. And, you know, if it's a quicker start, seeing, you know, something move out of the end of the shoe, or if it's a longer start, picking somewhere on the calf that I'm going to see out the end of the gate. I mean, it's a lot of mental thinking. It goes back to mental again. Yeah. Because I can sit here and score in the practice pen all I want, but when you get behind a barrier and things are faster and these aren't the calves that you rope every day, you've got to be able to diversify everything. And so that's one thing I'm really working on. Even now, I'm still roping a little bit. I've got a colt that I've really wanted to get going before I quit completely. And so really focusing on him, seeing a start on him, but still focusing on my mare, because my colt's going to leave completely different than my good mare is going to.
Gotcha.
So just focusing on that. I'm constantly watching videos. I'm constantly watching other people score. I'm constantly practicing, obviously, it's a given, but, different things, really making sure that I pick out the best runs where I scored the best, where maybe I didn't have the absolute fastest run or the best run, but I scored great, and so just focusing on that and focusing on, my balance as much as I can.
Yeah, and so can you break down, do you know what you're doing differently with your hand to help with your score?
Yeah, so Snooki was a very, in my hand, drop my hand, she's going to go. Akira's a little different. She is a drop your hand and kick, and I've never really had to kick my horse to go. It's gotten better now just because she was still pretty green when I bought her. She hadn't really been hauled anywhere, and so we're getting better now to where I can drop my hand and go. But really working on that with her is when I drop my hand, you got to go, and so she's really, really done good with that. But a lot of walk scoring, a lot of when you feel my hand drop, we get, and helping her, and she's come so far in a year. But I think that's where I make things right with my scoring. I make sure my hand is dropping when I see, if it's head around, boom, drop my hand when I see head around. And learning that sometimes I got to see a little bit more on a different calf, so I think that is probably the number one priority is my hand. I got to control my hand more than anything.
Gotcha. And what about, your body or your legs? What are you doing there, if anything?
I'm going to for sure be super, super chill when I'm in the box. My body, a horse can feel a fly lay on their back. So when I'm in the box, I'm going to be very still, very, very calm. I'm not going to give my horse a lot of movement in the box because I want them to sit there. I want them to feel my confidence, and I want them to have confidence. So I'm going to sit there very steady, very still with my body. So the only thing that they feel when I'm on my head is me dropping my hand. I think a lot of times, you're like, oh, my horse, they jumped off the back when I nodded my head. Well, they jumped off the back because you're moving your body. When you go to nod your head, your body is moving somehow, some way most of the time, because I always get my students out here and they'll back in the box and their horse is ready, and I'll just open the chute and they won't even nod and their horse will sit there perfectly. I'm like, look at that. Your horse sat perfectly because you weren't paying attention. So you weren't able to give them any body motions to think that you were scoring, and so definitely just keeping everything steady, not cueing my horse with my body is super important.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. That it is. I'm really glad you said that because horses literally, they can feel your thoughts, I swear.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, man. And, speaking of your students, what is the one thing, if you were to tell them anything, any piece of advice, what would you give your students or just anyone, who's going to be listening to this podcast?
It is not the end of the world if you have a bad run. Do not dwell. Reflect, but don't dwell. Reflection and dwelling is completely different. Make sure that when something goes haywire, talk about it, discuss it, get a game plan for what you're going to do next, and move on and think about another run. And if you're still catching yourself dwelling on it, go to your most awesome runs that you've ever made and look at them and look at the confidence you had and look at what you did on those runs. You know, one of my favorite things is to find something similar. If I'm fixing to go to a rodeo and I've been there before and I made a good run there, I'm going to go back, watch that video, and I'm going to see what I want to mimic that good run, you know, there. Or I'm going to find an arena similar or a calf that I have drawn similar to the one I have now and mimic that run and remember that feel that I had. I think that's one thing. Another thing that is very important is a feel. You got to have a feel. You can't just go off what you say you're going to do. You got to be able to feel what you're doing. And I think that's really important for kids too, you know, or listeners, is understand that when you make a good run, go back and think about that feel that you had. What'd you do during that run that made you so successful? Mm-hmm. And then go do it. Go utilize, you know, do that in practice and have a couple of runs and go out and make that run that you love, your most favorite run, and have that feeling and know that feeling is what you're confident in.
Got it. That is perfect. That is so perfect. Well, cool, Abby. Well, I sure hope people got a lot out of this episode. I know I did, and I really appreciate you taking the time to just chat with me for about an hour.
Hey, thanks. I hope it wasn't too long of an interview. I know I can kind of get on to rambling about these things, but it's hard not when you do what you love.
No, I love it. I know everyone else is going to love it as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, and hopefully I get to talk to you soon.
Yes, hopefully very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you again for listening to this episode. This episode was brought to you by Equinety. Don't forget, if you have favorite parts of this episode that just really resonate with you and stuck with you, let us know. We want to know exactly what you guys are enjoying. So give us a shout on social media, tag us in your posts, even comment on our posts. We'd love to hear it.